Hello everyone, welcome back. Today we are beginning our class 8 history class. In that, unit 1 is how, when and where. Before we start, let me ask you a simple question. How many of you feel that history is boring because it is full of dates? I am sure many of you are raising your hand right now. We all have felt that at some point there are so many dates to remember. But today, I want to change that perspective completely. The first topic is how important are dates. Let me start with a small example. Imagine you are sitting at a small tea shop. Someone near you is enjoying a hot cup of tea. Suddenly a question comes to your mind. How did tea become so common in India? When did people actually start drinking tea here? Or imagine you are traveling in a train and looking outside the window. You might wonder, how did people travel before railway existed? Or suppose you are reading a newspaper in the morning and you may ask, before newspaper existed, how did people know what was happening in the world? These are historical questions, and see, none of these require one specific date like 5th August 1756. What we actually want to know is how things changed over time. So, history is not about remembering dates, history is understanding change. It is understanding the journey from the before to after, from past to present. But then the big question comes, why were dates considered so important earlier? Because earlier, history was written in a very different way. It was mainly about kings and battles. So historians wrote things like when a king came to power and when a war began and when he died and who became ruler after him. So naturally dates were important in that type of history. But now the focus of history was changed. We are not only interested in kings and queens. We want to know how ordinary people lived and how cities changed and how trade grew and how culture and ideas evolved. So the importance of dates depends on what story we are trying to tell. Now, which dates should we choose? Let me give you another example. When British historians wrote Indian history, they wrote it around only governor generals like Warren Hastings, Dalhousie, Curzon, etc. It looked like the entire story of India, what these British officers did, and Indian people like farmers, workers, freedom fighters had no role. Imagine reading history like a film where only the villain is shown and the hero never appears. Obviously, that history is incomplete. So, when we change the focus from Governor General to people, then a whole new set of events and dates become important. Maybe dates of farmers' revolts, and dates when railway expanded, and dates when ideas of nationalism spread. So, the real question is not what date, but whose story are we telling? Now, how do we periodize history? Now comes another important point. To study history properly, we divide it into periods like chapters in a book. Earlier, James Mill, a Scottish historian, divided Indian history into the Hindu period, Muslim period, and British period. It sounds simple, but very problematic. Why? Because India has always had many religions living together. Even when a Muslim ruler ruled, Hindus, Sikhs, Jains, Buddhists also lived here. So, can we say the whole age was Muslim? Impossible. So, this classification is biased and disrespectful. Later, historians used another system, that is ancient, medieval, and modern. But friends, think about it. In Europe, the modern period meant democracy, freedom, equality, and progress. But in India, under British rule, did we have any freedom? Were Indians treated equally? Was there real economic development? No, right? So, historians say instead of calling it modern, we should call it colonial period. Now, what is colonialism? Colonialism means when one country controls another country fully, not only politically but also economically, socially, and culturally. The British controlled the Indian kings, Indian land revenue, Indian economy, Indian markets, and Indian culture and laws. So, this period deserves the name colonial India. And different groups like farmers, tribals, zamindars, princes experienced it differently. That's why our book called Our Past in plural. Next. So, how do historians study all this? What source do they use to understand the last 250 years? The British were obsessed with the record keeping. They wrote down every decision, every plan, and every agreement. They built record rooms in every district, office, and court, and collectorate. They believed if it is written, it is real. If it is not written, it does not exist. So historians today study those letters, memos, reports and surveys. British also did these surveys like land survey, forest surveys, population census every 10 years because they wanted to control everything. But these records shows only the British point of view. They don't show the real life of common Indians. So historians also use diaries, autobiographies, traveler accounts, local newspaper and novels and poems. And even then, the voice of the tribals, peasants, workers are hardest to find. But historians still try because their stories matter. So, today we understood history is not about mugging dates. It is a story of change, a journey from past to present. Dates are important only when they help us understand that journey. And to study history meaningfully, we must see it through the eyes of common people, not just rurals. So that's it for today's class. I hope this chapter opened up a new way of seeing history. In the next class, we will go deeper into colonialism and transformations in India. Till then, like, share and subscribe, and thank you so much for watching. See you soon.